To kick things off, I want to start and welcome our very first speaker for today. And for this, I'd like to bring on Stani from Avara to tell us about how we can think about new ways to understand wallets. Please give Stani a big round of applause. Welcome.
GM.
It has been a busy and exciting week for you. There's a lot of announcements that Avara has made. I want to focus on a couple of these, but primarily the thing that you came out with a few days ago. And that is the launch of the Family Wallet. Tell us more about why you decided to enter the wallet space.
Yeah, I mean, this is actually quite an interesting story because Avara started and is more known from the Aave protocol that the Aave Labs built over the years and been contributing for the past 7 years and has significant net deposits in lending and borrowing as of today, 25, 26 billion, depending on the day. And at some point we realized that blockchain kind of is a really neutral technology for different use cases, and we expanded beyond financial applications. But over a year ago, I met a team, the family team, and specifically Benji Taylor, who has been, before building a family, was building a social app called Honk, which was really fun and interesting experience. And that team then pivoted to actually build a wallet. And wallets are kind of a fascinating concept because it's effectively an entry point into this world that we all are here building. And both Benji and I have something that we share in common is that we feel that the actually entry points into this world should be more fun, more delightful, and also more easier to onboard. And I think there's plenty of wallets today, and that's actually a good thing, and it gives diversity. But something really is missing is to figure out how we can make the experience to come on chain as easy as possible. And that's what basically Family team has been focusing on. And right a little bit as of Monday, actually, 1 year ago, we decided to acquire Family, and the team joined Avara. And not just being working on Family itself, but across all the products we have. But the main exciting point of that is that we were able to launch Family last Monday, and we've been building it together with the Family team now for the past 2 years. And it's been taking quite a lot of time because the actual challenging part for a good wallet is the experience and design and nailing that quality. So that has been quite main factor why we think investing and building a better wallet is important as more and more people are coming into the space.
That's awesome. I mean, 2 years is a lot of time to perfect that experience, and given how fast the space moves, that's a night and day change on anywhere from primitives to L2s didn't exist, a lot of them. So maybe what is something that makes Family unique, and kind of what are the things that you've optimized for here compared to other wallets?
I think the main point of Family is that it's really easy to onboard, and it has this very kind of like a detailed approach into design and experience. So every single flow or every single section of the wallet is very detailed. So we're trying to put a lot of energy into ensuring that every possible screen and every button and every experience within the wallet feels really intuitive and is delightful to use. So effectively, when you look at Family Wallet, it really feels like a product. It doesn't feel just a piece of technology that you use to connect to on-chain. I guess like going back in time, to connect to internet, you need to get a broadband, for example, and you don't really care what it is as long as it connects. But at some point, you start to care actually how do you make this process easier? How do you get people online, but also transact online in a way that is really simple and intuitive. And Family has a really product-centric approach, which is actually gives a lot of inspiration to a lot of builders in the space, and also even what we're doing in Aave and Lens and all the other products that we have at Avara. And one important thing is that the onboarding experience. So how many of you have now a family wallet and have used it? So there's quite a few. And something that we implemented is a wallet management system that we built called Pocket. And that means that you can actually log into Family just simply by your email or your phone number. And that's essentially a backup service that we provide with a zero knowledge, essentially. So we're aiming purely for newcomers, but we're getting a lot of traction from existing users because it brings just a different kind of a perspective for building products in Web3.
Out of curiosity, when you kind of see this exact situation, which is you're designing something for brand new people, but you also have to cater for existing people, do they want more advanced features, or and then kind of when that happens, is the decision you're making to either make that less accessible to them, or you want to still showcase that, but you don't want to default it to be not really as customizable? Like, how do you kind of rectify what a brand new user who doesn't understand what smart contracts are, or account abstraction is, or how to think about multiple chains, to somebody who's like, I want to specify my chain ID and I want to figure out what to do here and all those things?
It's a really, really interesting question because I think the way we've been building wallets and a lot of the stack in Web3 is really like technological aspects. So we're thinking of how do you add additional networks, how do you verify that it's a specific chain ID, and how do you swap between the networks, like choose your network essentially, and how does the bridging work? And I think this is a very technological approach into the experience, whereas when you actually design it in a way where you try to kind of like give it less value and prioritize just usability, you can actually abstract a lot of that decisions away from the users. So when you look at Family, if you onboard into Family and you buy ETH and then you bridge some of that ETH into, let's say, to Base or Arbitrum, you still see one ETH, but we have a breakdown for you where that ETH actually exists. And then you avoid certain type of things that annoy me personally when you see multiple rows of ETH in the wallet, and just for the fact that they're different in the different networks. And if you think about just how internet has been built, there's a lot of connectivity there happening and a lot of transitioning between networks, but that doesn't actually reflect all the way to the end user what's actually changing between the networks in terms of informations. So I think that's like a really concrete example there. And I was really focusing on newcomers quite a lot, and that was our team's vision, that Family will be a wallet for newcomers who are joining. So if you are a crypto user and you're experienced, maybe Family will be a wallet that you recommend for your friends and family. But what we actually noticed is that the more experienced users are actually excited Family as well. Recently, Bangkok basically tweeted about Family being really intuitive wallet, and it was surprising to me that a lot of users from DeFi are actually excited about it.
I mean, and you kind of just highlighted that, like, so far when we've seen wallets or just applications in general, the focus has been on infrastructure. But what you're kind of doing is, in a way, showing that not only can we make the UX better for all these things, but effectively building Family as a wallet is also a way of showcasing that things are being made for consumer applications. Broadly kind of speaking, do you think that we're ready for a consumer application world, or do we still need to kind of build some things that kind of get us to that starting point? Or kind of do you stand on infra versus actually building applications people use?
We're in a very good place. I think maybe like we're going 1 year backwards. It wasn't the same actually, because a lot of the scalability is basically coming now with plenty of updates, like the blob space and also L2s are giving a lot of breathing space for scalability at the moment, and that has been the trend for the past couple of years. So I think we're reaching towards a direction where consumer transactions are possible, and you can even go beyond rollups with solutions like Validium and using data availability layers. So I do think that we're kind of in a point where it's actually possible, and we have solutions like embedded wallets or what we did with Pocket in Family, and we have account abstraction. We have a lot of tooling actually to abstract away the complexity of the blockchain and ability to focus on experience that equals almost like using online applications. And that includes abstracting away gas, and even gas and signing and everything that is really just a bottleneck. Because eventually, you should be able to use on-chain the same way you're using online today.
I totally agree, and I think just this is one of those things where it keeps getting better and better over time, and then it's also a constant iteration game, because once you kind of get more users in, you kind of figure out what the new bottlenecks are, and you kind of improve that, and you continue doing this. The thing that I'm kind of curious about is Avara has been kind of the new focus, where you've introduced a suite of products. Family is the latest addition here. How do you kind of think about all of these products talking to each other? Are you going to add kind of special interfaces for Lens and Aave to Family, or do they kind of get treated the same as everybody else? How do you think about a better unification for all the products that you're building? Yeah,
now I would say that they don't really talk that much to each other, because a lot of these products are quite new, except for Aave and Aave Protocol, that they've been more around. But eventually, I think on-chain is a really good place for composability, and it's much more easier to actually have vertical integration. So now we're moving towards our next step, which is essentially making these protocols to talk to each other and benefit more the user. So some things that we're working for Family is actually making ability to use and supply into Aave. That's one of the top priorities that we, for example, have. We're also thinking about Lens, especially with the new Lens V3 release, which includes individual primitives that could be used in Family. And also, obviously, this type of a composability is really important, and we're trying to integrate it very natively. We still have a block explorer in the app, and I think that's a way to access the whole Web3, but the native experience is very valuable, and we're trying to figure out ways how to get as much of that as possible, because that's where we can actually have more control over the experience and have a bit more opinionated approach and build something unique for the users.
How far out is that? Like, is this like we're going to see that immediately, or eventually? Kind of, how do you think about feedback versus what you want to actually kind of present and then see how people react?
I think it's going to be extremely opinionated. I think the Family team specifically is, they have a particular way of designing and building products. And that type of aspect is also, we're observing that into our other products, but it's going to be very opinionated. So there's a lot of things you won't see in Family, but there's a lot of very interesting things that you will see. And I think that's going to make it a really nice product, because we're not going to integrate everything that exists in Web3. It can be available to an explorer, but our goal is actually to figure out what the users need and what they should do in the future. And I think that's a really interesting approach here, because it also allows us to our users might use in the future, but getting obviously feedback will be really always helpful.
And if anything, even kind of seeing the UX interactions we've seen from Benji, whether it's on Twitter or just the documentations you've pushed on for other products, I can really see the kind of the thought that's been put into making that experience really, really perfect. So I can imagine how the opinionatedness is actually going to be a good thing here, because you actually get to direct them to where you want them to go.
And I think it's like, I think the hardest part is the last mile on design and experience. And usually most teams, they don't do the last mile necessarily that well, and it can be time constraints sometimes purely. And I think that's where we're going to differentiate, is that we're trying to close that last mile that actually can make a big difference. So if you haven't used Family today, obviously the best way to actually explain it or experience it is to downloading Family. Family.co/download is where you get an iOS version and you can actually try the onboarding experience. And I really want to hear your opinion on that, because it's we put a lot of energy into making it as smooth as possible. But if you have interesting features in mind or things that Family should include, we're always happy to also hear about it.
Amazing. On the kind of topic of wallets, one thing that I think it's been top of mind for a lot of people in this space, especially anybody in DeFi, has been stablecoins, and just kind of making payments more and more accessible and out there. And wallets obviously are a really good first interface to that experience. And kind of the one thing that we saw recently was also that immediately after the election in the US, you kind of saw a massive surge in stablecoin supply just kind of going up. I think it went like 5 billion or something in like a few days. And the thing I'm kind of curious about is you've obviously been interested and involved in this space too with Go. How do you kind of think about the stablecoin ecosystem right now? And what do you think the opportunities are?
Yeah, I mean, the stablecoins are in peak demand, and that's really amazing to see, because I think stablecoins has particularly this effect that the bigger they grow, the larger the network effects are, and the more we see adoption. So the network effects are really tied into that adoption. And I do think that there's going to be a lot of stablecoins coming from traditional, more like fintech type of companies and tokenizing their deposits. But eventually, like the big value add from all these different stablecoins are that it creates an actual yield market and yield opportunity in DeFi. And I think that's really powerful. But also the payments use case is going to be really significant. And this is what we talked about earlier about the infrastructure, that the infrastructure are in a place where it's getting to a point where you can actually start transacting in real-time payments. And with the existing transaction cost, you can abstract gas away. So you can actually do interesting things in terms of payments on chain. And this is something that really didn't exist a couple of years ago. So for example, if you are building in DeFi and focusing on stable coins, the payments area is a really fascinating part to build. And hopefully you build on Go, which is also the Aave native stablecoin. I have to mention it, but it's a really interesting.
So kind of two questions to that. One is like kind of what's your best kind of understanding or theory on why we just saw a massive surge recently in stablecoins, given that we haven't really seen a super direct correlation with the prices of the rest of the crypto going up, or an event where suddenly just more and more people got onboarded to crypto. And that's kind of an interesting thing. And the second thing will be, just for our audience, give us an overview of what Go is and why you decided to create a stablecoin.
Yeah, I mean, Go came from more from the product perspective, actually, than solving kind of like a larger stablecoin problem, because there's already stablecoins in DeFi and so forth. So one of the big challenge in Aave was that all the rates on Aave are variable rates, meaning they fluctuate based on supply and demand. So it's an algorithmic system that works by itself. The only thing that the Aave DAO that is governing the Aave protocol has to do is to periodically tweak some risk parameters. But mainly the interest rate curve is working quite well based on supply and demand. And something that our users effectively wanted is to have more predictability on interest rates. And the way to actually do that is by having a native stablecoin that is governed by some sort of algorithm that brings more the predictability into the interest rates or DAO governance rates. And that happened purely by a borrower's demand. And it's been quite interesting. So Go is a relatively small stablecoin. It's a little bit under 200 million in issuance, but it provides a significant utility to the Aave users. And for the Aave DAO, it's quite interesting because 100 million worth of Go is earning to the Aave DAO the same amount of 1 billion USDC is earning because it doesn't have LPs. So it came from that product angle. And I think this type of DNA is across our company where we're trying to constantly innovate and think how we can accelerate the space more through innovation. And I think from Aave's perspective, we'll see more innovation coming with Aave V4, improvements into Go. And there's a lot of opportunity to actually build on top of these technologies. And I think Kartik, I mentioned this even last time, is that I think like a lot of innovation, for example, in DeFi will happen on the kind of like an application level. So I think that the back end of the DeFi has been relatively well built. And now there's opportunities to build these application level use cases that actually brings more of these users into a space and grabbing a lot of market share. And that's actually fascinating because if you're able to build a really good application that is using DeFi in the back end, you're actually owning the end user relationship, which is really powerful.
I think that's a really, actually I learned something new here too. I didn't realize that was the primary reason for creating Go, and it makes sense to actually introduce a stability, plus you kind of make a simpler unit of account on just kind of how to think about interest rate or just borrowing power. So that's actually super cool. I learned this new thing. Maybe we get into some of the Alpha League stuff here, but obviously you've been working on Aave V4, and I'm kind of curious to understand kind of what has been a goal for what to optimize in V4, and does that actually now affect what Go is also going to evolve into, and anything you can share about how that gets better over time?
Yeah, and always like when we think about Aave, the goal is, it's very boring. It's making Aave more capital efficient and making Aave more getting better risk management in the protocol level. So those two drivers are the most important for us. And focusing on that, it clears a lot of kind of like a mind when we're innovating. There's going to be features that really makes it possible to actually price the liquidity much better in the Aave protocol. So currently, if you're borrowing USDC from Aave, you're paying the same exact rate as everyone else, regardless of your risk position in the protocol. In V4, we have a feature called liquidity premiums, which means that we can price the liquidity based on the risk position, and meaning the collateral composition. So if you're supplying only ETH and you're borrowing USDC, your actually rate is going to be lower on the borrowing side than you will be collateralizing wrapped stake ETH, for example, and borrowing USDC. And this pricing just makes it more accurate, and it creates a risk curve. So the more riskier position on accepted spectrum you're providing into Aave, the higher you are on the risk spectrum. And then on the other side, what we're trying to solve is that how do you move on the yield curve within Aave as well? So obviously now if you supply USDC, you earn the same as anyone else, but we want to enable the ability to move higher on the risk curve and basically subscribe to different types of risk categories. And then there is better integrations with Go directly. Aave V4 has a lot of exciting features. So if you want to know more, you should check the proposal of Aave V4 because there's a lot that we are building, and we're building it completely in public. So we have every month a developer update in the Aave governance forum that you can actually read and follow the progress.
Nice. Want to start asking some kind of closing questions, but I also do want to tie this together. One thing you kind of made a comment about when you were talking about family was how we kind of see a lot of other wallets sort of just not really be smart about showing what your assets are. The kind of corollary I want to ask you is like, how does Go behave in a multi-chain world? Like, are your aspirations to be on every chain? How do you think about prioritizing what to do? How do they all work together with the supply of the borrowing and lending on Aave markets? And how should we think about the future of multi-chain Go?
Yeah, I mean, Aave itself is in 13 different networks, EVM networks, and we're also working on non-EVM implementations, but EVM is where most of our software is, which is quite interesting because Aave is something that kind of belongs to every network. So if there is enough financial value that can be then used as a collateral and traded, it's a potential place where Aave can be deployed. And in terms of Go, Go is currently only on mainnet and Arbitrum, but there's a couple of other proposals to expand Go into Base and Avalanche, and we believe there's going to be more networks. And Go is going to live in multi-chain world, and we're also excited and interested to get Go into some sort of Validium solution to enable large-scale payments use cases as well down the line. The challenging part about Go is that every network that is expanding to, there needs to be some sort of liquidity pipeline there. To move Go, we're using, for the messaging, we're using Chainlink CCIP, and that has been really easy tool for us to expand. But the harder part is actually to build up that liquidity and demand. But it's also quite interesting because on mainnet, on Ethereum, Go is actually, you can borrow it as a more predictable rate. But for example, on Arbitrum, it's listed as an asset where you can earn variable rate and borrow as a variable rate as well, which creates some arbitrage opportunities.
Nice. I mean, that's going to be a very interesting world because you will kind of see unintended fragmentation, but it's not really fragmentation. It's just the ability to kind of not be able to tap into that much liquidity, even if the global supply kind of supports that.
Yeah, and the whole liquidity fragmentation is interesting because the way that Ethereum is scaling with L2s, it kind of looks like there's liquidity a bit everywhere, and there's you could assume that there's liquidity fragmentation, but in most cases, users are specifically using certain networks, and they're not using most of the networks at the same time. So each L2, if it's purposely designed, is catering a specific user. Of course, you have users where they're operating in multiple networks and capturing that arbitrage opportunity on all the assets on chain, but there also are more like a professional market makers. Usually, users are sticking to 1 or 2, maximum 3 different networks. So I'm not exactly sure if there's like a challenge of liquidity fragmentation at the moment.
That's fair, actually. That's an interesting take that I feel like deserves its own special chatted discussion. Maybe to kind of close, my final question is kind of wrapping all of this up. You talked about kind of how you got to where you are with 2 years of work on Family Wallet, and you kind of did hint about the new integrations that are coming in from especially Aave and over time Lens. What can we also expect in the future about how we expect the family and just mobile wallet experiences to change, and anything else that you're excited about on how to make better wallets?
Yeah, I mean, our roadmap is going to be very exciting. So there's going to be frequent updates and improvements and things that we want to ship, things that are really fun and very delightful. And DeFi is going to be a big part of also family and in a very interesting way. But we also want to continuously seek of non-financial use cases as well. And I think that's a very big area. And I earlier mentioned that blockchain is kind of like a use case neutral technology. So there's a lot to build that is non-financial. So we kind of like want to see these two worlds come together. So yeah, if you haven't tried Family, you will be surprised how enjoyable it is, and hopefully we can earn you as a user. And if you are hacking during the hackathon, you can hack on everything we've built. And to your point of building something and being a founder, I think something that I learned is that it's very hard to achieve something really great in a short period of time. So you have to have a lot of resiliency. And this space is a long kind of a term space. So you have to aim also kind of in the future of time. So I'm wishing everyone really good luck as well.
Amazing. That's a perfect note to end this on. Thank you so much, Stani, for this amazing conversation, and look forward to having you again.
Thank you. Thank you, Kartik.